Hello and welcome to today's edition of Your Questions Answered by Father Gruner. With Father Gruner, I should say. This is a program where we take your questions, Father Gruner answers them, we talk about them. Continue to send us your questions at questions@thefatimacenter.com. Today we have a question about animals. Does an animal have free will? And of course, the person here, assumes the answer is no, but if you have a dog, and the dog knows the command to come, but yet does not come, when the command is called, the dog has made an active decision not to obey. What is free will but the ability to choose right from wrong? Okay, so where do we start with that?
Well, and of course the questioner goes on to say the right thing is to obey and the wrong thing is to disobey. And the dog disobeyed, therefore the dog had free will to choose to do wrong. Mm-hmm. That's the implication of this whole thing. And of course the answer is, of course, the dog doesn't obey not because he chooses by free will, but because of some other instinct he has. So if you put a mound of good food here and he's been starved for 5 days and you tell a dog to come away, he's going to eat the good food, no matter how obedient the dog is otherwise. But he's not he's not free to choose. No, his instinct says, you're hungry, you need the food, eat it. I mean, yes. But you might have more to say on this.
Well, one of the things that we human beings do, and we can't help it, is we anthropomorphize the animals. And anthropomorphize is just a fancy way of saying is we look at what they do and we impose human characteristics.
If I were to do that, that's what I would do.
If I was a dog, that's what I would do. If I was a cat, if I was the cat, that's what I would be thinking. Yeah. The big mistake is to use the word thinking. Because thinking requires an intellect, and I know this is shocking to today's way of looking at things, but animals do not have an intellect. Animals operate on the 5 external senses that we have, seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, and tasting, and all of that. But they also have internal senses they have imagination, they have the common sense where all the senses come together. They have what's called, and this all comes from St. Thomas, you know that. They have the estimative sense where they can recognize things that are pleasurable and painful, and they have a sense memory where they can make the connections. So animals do things according to those internal senses and the association of images. And that's why I knew a man who was, he was one of these kind of snarly men and young men. He was about 19 at the time. And there was this little poodle, and he hated this poodle because it was such a frilly feminine with a little bow and the owner would have the toenails painted, right? Well, he was just repulsed by this. And every time he saw the dog, he kicked it. Right? I mean, it's not nice to do to the dog, but he kicked the dog. So what happened when I almost said his name, when this person would walk into the house, that little poodle would go, it was the association of images of something that was painful connected to that person. And because the animals don't have intellect, their organic sensations actually is much stronger and higher than ours. When a convict escapes from jail, we don't send out some burly guard and tell him to get down on his knees and sniff to find the culture. We send dogs out to do it because they have all this heightened organic operations. And this is nothing new. This is what the church has always taught, what St. Thomas has taught, but it's not taught today. So people will look at animals and assume they have intellects and wills when they haven't been taught the proper structures of what the differences between animals and man.
Yeah, well, obviously the animals, in the case that you mentioned, is relating to this person always kicks me, so I'm going to stay out of his way. In fact, I'm going to express my displeasure with him. And of course, I'm even saying that.
You're thinking it,
But he's actually saying, I react to displeasurable things by barking. That's what I do.
Yeah.
That keeps them away from me. I mean, it's
just an automatic, it's instinctive, automatic, and it's learned, because they have memories and they can learn. But, the animal only sees the image, but the intellect grasps the concept.
Yes.
So, an animal would have, dogs are loyal, but the dog has no sense of loyalty. He doesn't know what it is. Cats are haughty, but a cat has no sense of the concept of haughtiness because it's an intellectual concept. And so, and where there is no intellect, there is no free will.
Yes, absolutely.
So, so that's really, I mean, we could talk about this for a while, but that's basically the basic answer is that we make the mistake of anthropomorphizing, humanizing animal actions when we're attributing to them qualities that they just don't have.
I suppose part of the problem is that we have senses, they have senses.
Yeah.
So they see something, we see something. So, but the difference is we see it, but then we internalize it also. We understand. I'm looking at a cup. A cup holds water or something else, and this has the nature of a cup. A dog just sees the water. He's thirsty. He goes
after it. Yes, yeah. It's all image.
Yeah.
It's all the image. Whereas the intellect, the human being, understands the concept of waterness.
Yes.
You know, and but there's a lot of confusion today because modern materialistic science just has us all thrown into the same soup.
Yes.
Whereas if you study the teaching of St. Thomas Aquinas, he makes it very clear the distinction between plant life and animal life and intellective life.
Yes.
You know, I mean, my azalea bush outside my house has nutrition, growth, and generation. It feeds itself, it grows, and it generates, it makes more bushes, you know. And we do that, we have those vegetative powers. And then there's the sensate life, the 5 external senses, the 4 external senses that we talked about. The dogs have that, the elephant has that, and we have that. But we also have intellect and will.
Yes.
And it's something the animals just don't have.
Yes.
Otherwise, they would have true speech.
Yes.
Otherwise, they would make true progress.
Yes.
But they don't. And this doesn't mean, too, I've said this to people, and you know what the reaction is? Oh, that means we can be mean to them? Is that what you're saying? You know, where did this come from?
They're creatures of God. And
they're creatures of God, and you know, you treat them well and kindly because of your rational nature,
yes.
that it's irrational to be needlessly mean to an animal.
Yes.
So anyway, so the animals do not have free will or intellect, but God gave them to us for many reasons, and we treat them well because they're creatures of God.
Yes.
So anyway, that's it for today's program, and we will see you next time.